Welcome to Couple Reviews, where I make a deal that changes everything. So if you haven't heard about the Twisted Tales, basically Disney has been releasing these books where they take a Disney movie and say, what if this happened differently? This one is what if Tiana made a deal that changed everything. So what happens is, near the end of The Princess and the Frog, the Shadow Man offers to make a deal with Tiana. In the movie, she refuses, but in this book, she ultimately does make a deal with the Shadow Man. The deal is he brings back her father from the dead in exchange for giving him the talisman back. But also there's more stipulations and additions to that deal. So part of their deal is Naveen not remembering the events of the movie, not remembering them being turned into frogs. And another part of the deal is her staying away from Naveen. The reason for that, the in-universe reason for that being in the deal is the Shadow Man thought that he could use Naveen to get to the LaBeouf family fortune through Charlotte. That ended up going nowhere for him, but it still has the effect on Naveen and Tiana throughout the book, which is ironic because the Shadow Man's reasons for doing that ended up being moot for reasons we'll talk about in a second. Tiana has her father back from the dead in this book, and they're running their restaurant. It's a smaller restaurant than the one she gets at the end of the movie because she didn't threaten the Finner brothers with the alligator in the book. In fact, another part of their deal was that Louis gets turned into a human, so he's not an alligator and this couldn't threaten them. So they're running the restaurant, and a lot of the book is just Tiana having more time with her father and the sort of life of them running the restaurant and the unsatisfied love between Tiana and Naveen. Tiana and Naveen are in love with each other, but Tiana thinks that she can't be with him because of the stipulations in the deal, which, remember how I said that the Shadow Man thought that Naveen was his gateway to the LaBeouf family fortune? That ended up going nowhere because the book establishes early on that Naveen and Charlotte are just friends now, which that was such a relief to me because I hate love triangles. So when I found that they're just friends, I liked that. And the interesting thing is, Naveen doesn't remember the events of the movie. He doesn't remember going on a journey with Tiana. He doesn't remember her falling in love with him. He doesn't remember how she inspired him to not be so lazy anymore. And yet the effects that journey had on him lasts, which it's kind of like those memories are still there, but they aren't. It's like the effects of those memories are still there. And deep down those memories are still there, so they sort of bubble up here and there, where he's like slowly remembering. I don't think he fully, I could be wrong, I don't think he ever fully remembered everything that he forgot in this book, but it still has an effect on. So he's in love with Tiana for reasons he can't remember, and he has changed from being lazy to wanting to prove himself and be a better hard worker, and he doesn't know why that is. He just has this like new mentality that's taken over, and he doesn't know it's because of Tiana. And Tiana's in love with him, but she feels like she can't be with him. So there's like, for a while she's avoiding him, and it hurts for her to avoid him because she's in love with him, and it hurts for him to be avoided by her because he doesn't know the reason she's avoiding him. He doesn't know that she thinks it's for his own good. He just knows that she's running away when he's approaching, and it's a bit weird for him to not give up on her when she's giving him so little time for most of the book anyway. Like at the beginning, she's almost obsessed with her, but from what the narration tells us, it sounds like they haven't interacted much since the events of the movie. It's possible that he has alternative memories of meeting her or talking with her more. Well, what I mean that is, his memories of being turned into a frog are taken out. His memories of being in the swamp with Tiana are taken out. It's possible that he has replacement memories that were put in that explain him already being in love with Tiana. They don't really spell that out, but it would explain everything. So The Princess and the Frog, the movie, handled race in a more subtle or more implied tone way. This book is a bit more direct about it, but it doesn't feel racist to me because, like, it wasn't just throwing all white people under the bus. They acknowledged that not everyone is racist. That I like how the LaBeouf family is not racist towards Tiana. In fact, Charlotte sticks up to someone who's being racist towards Tiana, and I like that. And also, there's this part where the book where they talk about the poor black people living in the slums and not the big mansions like the rich people, but they acknowledged that there was still some poor white people that were also living in the slums, so it acknowledges that not all white people are privileged, so I liked that too. So for the most part, I kind of liked how they talked about race, with it not being so anti-white and pointing out that it's complicated. There's parts where Tiana is telling Charlotte that she doesn't understand how things are for her, but at the same time she's not angry at Charlotte, and she understands that Charlotte is just trying to help. So I like that. There was one thing that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and it actually wasn't a racial thing. I'm gonna talk about a detail that happens like at the end of the book. It's not that big of a spoiler because I'm pretty sure you can figure this out pretty easily. At the end of the book, Tiana gets her new restaurant, her big restaurant, and then the book goes out of its way to specify that Tiana employs an all-female staff apart from the musicians that play in the band, and I find that discriminatory. I mean, but okay, part of me wants to just say that's discriminatory hiring practices and I don't like it, but let's be a little bit fair in things as we judge this. First of all, in the movie, there was a part of Princess and the Frog where she's singing the song that's called Almost There, which is the title of this book. That's where they got from. And in her fantasy of her big restaurant, she has this staff working for her, and it looked like most, if not all, of her employees in that fantasy were black. And I thought, well, this book is set in the 1920s. There were surely a lot of establishments that only employed white people. So for Tiana to have a mostly black staff would probably just be understandable under the premise of there being so few other places that want to hire black people. So in Tiana's restaurant, I can understand her wanting to employ a mostly black staff because they're of fewer other options. But to have an all-female staff, I don't know how things work. I don't know if the same argument would apply. I'm not really sure how many jobs were available for women back then, but I don't know if I would say let's just not let any men work there apart from the band. And another part of me just presenting the other side of the argument is there are some establishments that employ all-female waitresses for the sake of eye candy, so why are we saying that's okay? Why are we saying it's okay for them to hire all-female waitresses for the sake of eye candy, but not saying it's okay to hire an all-female waitress staff for the sake of empowerment? So I will understand that, but still, there's no practical need for Tiana's staff to be all-female to justify the hiring practices. So I'm just left to call shenanigans on the discrimination here, unless it really was that bad for women trying to find jobs back then. But here's even though I don't agree with Tiana having a all-female staff and discriminatory hiring practices, I'm still going to say I'm not going to do what cancel culture does. I was talking about this with a few friends a few days ago. The thing that cancel culture reveals about people is the fact that people don't measure the good a person has done against the bad against the bad that a person has done. They just look, when people cancel someone, they just forget about all the good stuff they've done and focus just on the bad stuff they've done. And I'm thinking, let's take this book and say, I don't like the fact that Tiana has discriminatory hiring practices, but I'm not going to let that dismiss the fact that she brought up the complexities of racial issues not being so black and white, and not just throwing white people under the bus, and not calling all white people privileged, and having there be characters who aren't racists and are not treated poorly for not understanding things. So I'm just not going to let that little flaw ruin everything else, if that makes sense. So if you read this book and you think, I can't believe M.V.P.Knight recommended this book when it has this line in it about the all-female staff, just know that M.V.P.Knight did not sign off on that page. As for my thoughts, apart from racial and gender issues, I found it to be pretty atmospheric for most of the book. New Orleans is a fairly decent setting, and I love the way people talk in this book, so it keeps that fun New Orleans charm to it, or New Orleans as they often refer to it. A lot of this book is like Tiana running the restaurant and these hiccups that happen that throw wrenches into the gear, and her arrangement with this shadow man being dubious, and him throwing in complications that she's not sure what to do with, and there's these plagues that start happening. So a lot of it is in like interesting build-up and engaging situation, if you will. Where the book kind of falls apart is in the payoff later on, where the climax is pretty lackluster. Like the last few chapters sort of don't really follow through with what has been built up, if you will. The Shadow Man goes out like a wuss, let's just say that. It is a bruh, you fell for that kind of a moment. Also, the plagues in this book. Now, with the arrangements that has been made with their deal and the nature of what's going on, you sort of look at that, and then you look at the plagues happening, like the molds and the swarms, and you think, well, if I had to guess the reason why all this stuff was happening, it's probably because da-da-da-da-da-da-da, and then that's what happens. You know, it's just, I guess I just wasn't immediately convinced that the explanation was da-da-da-da-da because that seemed too obvious, or maybe I thought that I was expecting something better. I couldn't have been that. That was just, that it needed a better payoff than that, but nope, that's the thing. And the way they diffuse it is just kind of anticlimactic, and the relationship between Tiana and Naveen, it's all build up, no payoff. They pretty much skipped the part where it pays off. They literally skipped the part where it pays off. They have these moments, right, where she's cleaning his wound, like where she's like taking care of his wounds, or he's flirting with her and she's into it because deep down she's into him, or they're having a nice moment, even though it's not really resulting in a relationship. And that's like you expect that to be leading to something. It's just, that was the something, and that's kind of the disappointing part of it. So it's like, it has cozy build-up, but then they just sort of gloss over the payoff, and then the book ends. And then the book just ends, like, Naveen and Tiana have chemistry, and Tiana is like thinking about how she can't believe him. She used to find him annoying. Naveen is talking about how her hard work ethic inspires him to be better, which I like, and he's so playful with her, and she's like begrudgingly into it, or she's like, it hurts them both, her, that she can't just reciprocate his feelings like she wants to until later, I guess. But like their relationship isn't like constantly present, at least not as much as it was in the movie, I guess. She has a lot of the time is spent with Tiana and Charlotte. A lot of the time is spent with other subplots. A lot of time is spent with Tiana and her dad. So there's not as much of a proportion of time spent with Tiana and Naveen, even though there is some nice fluffy moments with them. And again, it doesn't really lead to that much, as a lot of things tend to just not lead to that much. It's just like you're thinking, wow, I can't wait till the payoff where we get the real meat of this story. Nope, that was the real meat of this story. So it's not a great book. I guess I would recommend, here's the thing. Let me try to summarize the quality in this way. I am someone who wanted to like the movie but didn't. And then I read this and I liked it a bit more than the movie. I'm guessing if you liked the movie to begin with, you'd probably like or love this. I don't know if you liked the movie, I can't guarantee that you're gonna like this more. I'm just saying that I liked the book a little bit more because I'm someone who didn't get that much into the movie itself. I thought that with the movie, I just felt like the first 20-something minutes were good, and then once Tiana turned into a frog, the movie just died. So I'm someone who doesn't hold the movie in that higher of regard, so when I say I liked the book better, don't take that as, wow, it must be amazing. No, I liked it okay. It's one of the better Twisted Tales for sure. A lot of the Twisted Tales are just junk. This wasn't that bad. So if you're a Disney princess fan, I would recommend it, I guess, but with the understanding that it's not mind-blowing, or it's not going to be one of the best books you've ever read. It's not going to. If you loved Princess and the Frog, I don't know if it's going to hold up to those expectations. But I liked it okay, with the exception of a few things here and there. And Tiana, I do like Tiana more now, having read this book. That was something I really wanted out of this book, was I went into this book thinking, make me a fan of Tiana. That was when I went into here thinking, because I wanted to like Princess and the Frog. I'm a big, huge Disney princess fan, and I was just let down by the Princess and the Frog. I wanted this to make me love Tiana, because she's a good character. She just needed a better story. This book has a lot of Tiana in it, obviously, and I love her work ethic. I like how she's proud, but without her being a stuck-up jerk who's like, no, don't try to help. Well, she kind of tells people not to help her, but not in a disrespectful way, I guess. And she does eventually come around to seeing that she does need help sometimes. So I liked her in this book, and she's not a frog, thankfully. That was the thing that just ruined the whole movie. Was great, we have this great New Orleans and this great princess, but now we're gonna turn into a frog and spend most of the time in the swamps. She never turns into a frog, except for she's a frog at like the part of the first chapter, and then she's never a frog again. And as for the swamp, at a certain point they go to the swamp for something, but it's not most of the book. In fact, I was dreading the idea that we could spend too much of the book there. We don't spend that much time there. And while we're there, there's better stuff that they spend time on than what the movie spent time on. There's more stuff about Lewis grappling with being a human, more conversations with Tiana and Naveen and Charlotte that were better than the conversations he had in the movie. So it wasn't as disappointing as the movie for me. So I do like Tiana more now, having read this book. That's like the biggest reason why I would say you should read this, if nothing else, to get you hyped for the Tiana series that's coming up. Speaking of which, there are a few characters in this book that I'm wondering are going to be in Tiana the series that's going to be on Disney Plus, like Lysette, and I think that's how I pronounce it, I could be wrong, and Miss Rose. I don't know if they're just in this book and they're never going to appear in anything else, or if they're, I don't know if the people who are working on the series talked to the author of this book and advised her to put in a few characters from that. I don't know if that's the case, but there are definitely a few characters that are in this book that were not in the movie. In the future, I will be reviewing more Disney books. I've started reading The Nightmare Before Christmas, Long Live the Pumpkin Queen. That's going to be a review at some point. I also got this book, Prince of Song and Sea. This is the first of the Disney Princess books that Disney has started making. They're going to be the Disney princess films from the prince's perspective. I'm cautiously excited for this because I'm worried it might just be repeating scenes from the movie. If that's the case, why am I reading it instead of just watching the movie? I'm hoping there's more to it. I'm hoping there's creative liberties taken and more content than that wasn't seen in the movie. So I'm hoping that this will be good. And I kind of like Eric. I like Eric. He's one of the better Disney princes, in my mind at least. And also, I'm a Tangled fan, and I heard a few good things about this one. This Another Twisted Tale about Tangled, what once was mine, but I'm not sure I'm going to like this one because it's from the same author as Tales of This Time and A Part of Your World. Not high hopes, just high demands, I suppose. Oh, also, at some point, I'm going to read a non-Disney book. I have The Bone Shard Daughter. It's been sitting on my shelf for months because I've been feeling so obligated to read these Disney books for the sake of views. But it's someday, Bone Shard Daughter. Someday. So as you can tell, I have a lot of reading in my future, but that's not all this channel does. I do a lot of videos about movies, and I've been having a lot of fun making videos about a show called Stargirl. It's been some more fun videos. So remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell, and don't turn into a frog.